Welcome to the Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. This is a broadcast where faith meets creativity, and we explore life as artists and truth seekers under the reign of the ultimate king, Yeshua HaMashiach. Through art, truth, and scripture, we'll uncover what it means to live our best lives now, rooted in the reality of God's kingdom. Join us each week as we dive into conversations about faith, freedom, creativity, all while uncovering the truth in a world full of distractions. Why? Because it's time to empower ourselves to create boldly, live authentically, and stand firm in God's purpose for our lives. This is the Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Creative Revolution. Where faith and creativity collide to inspire a vibrational shift. Let's create. Let's thrive. And let's glorify God. Together, 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 together. Forever, 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 forever. Amen. 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 Amen.
Everything goes somewhere.
I'm just gonna be honest.
We live?
We're live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome
To the Creative Revolution.
to the Creative Revolution. Yeah, we're super excited. We're back with another action-packed episode in our series, System Error. And today is the big one that we postponed for a week because we needed to dig a little bit into the recesses. Adam is, and when I say are, I mostly mean Adam, because Adam is an OG researcher, whereas I myself am an inherent wisdom oracle of truth and light comprehension. So with that being said, Adam had to put some things on paper so that we could stay focused. Right, babe?
Digital paper, that is.
Right.
On the computer. But this is something, I have researched for decades now. I've gone on quite a journey. We explained a little bit of our awakening through 9/11 and different things before, and this is kind of like the summary of what we found out. This isn't something that I love talking about. Like, I do like talking about it because I know a lot and it's quite important, and you just want to tell everybody. But I've learned from the past that not everybody likes all this information because it's very negative and dark, but we might need to move through that to get to the light, because you need to know what doors to shut so you can move into the light.
Yes, Lord.
I just remember this one time when I was first discovering all this stuff, I thought everybody would be interested, because I'm like, oh, these are facts that I'm finding.
And it's fascinating.
And I want to share it. And I just remember my one friend, my good friend John, driving down the road, and he's this quiet, very reserved guy, like barely talks at all. And all of a sudden, in the car he was driving, he turns to me and he starts like, just shut up, like, just stop it. And he like lost his lid, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, what did I do wrong? I thought that you wanted to hear all this stuff. So then I realized from that point on that not everybody wants to hear it, and it's a trigger, because everybody likes to be in this perfect bubble that, there's wrong things in the world, but in general, the human race, we're all working it out, and soon all these wars will be gone. And, especially our society, Canada, we're these easygoing people in the north, and Americans aren't so bad, except when they're, sending their military over to the other side of the world to kill people. But other than that, we got it good here, and we have nothing to worry about. When you start talking about this stuff, you're like, well, there's something to worry about, and something that actually blows our minds and is uncomprehendable for most people. And so
it's also super uncomfortable, right? Like, the thing is that even when like clouds pass in front of the sun on a warm day, like, it becomes a little bit less comfortable than it was when the warm sun was beating down on us. So it's like you said, a good point, Adam. It's like, we have to pass through this dark information, this cloud of darkness, in order to truly break through into the light and all of the goodness that lies on the other side. because it's true. We need to shut doors and then open brand new ones and walk through them with a full level of assurity and with comprehension that what we're doing is in alignment with the divine will and not in an alignment with the dark army, you know? So this is going to be exciting. So today, this afternoon, we're just going to dive right into it. And so I'm just going to, what?
Yeah, I was just flowing
Okay.
with the
Just
podcast.
flowing
I'm
with
saying,
the-
and this is our episode now where we just talked about our journey of truth and awakening and finding out that there is conspiracies and all that to 9/11 and going on from there. And this is the accumulation of all that. And episode is to prove and to show you that there is a new world order. You know, we need to ask ourselves what is truth and what are we talking about here? Theories, passing thoughts, or facts? No, the New World Order is a fact, 100%. There's some things I can say in life that I'm like 100% certain on. I would sacrifice my soul, that this is it. Like Jesus, 100%. Like I know I'm a male, 100%. I know that the sky is blue, 100%. And I also could say that the fact that there's a new world order, these elite group of people controlling the world, 100%. Like there is, it's not like a 50-50 chance. There's some theories that I have that are 50-50 and some that are like 90-95%, like the earth being flat. I'm pretty convinced that we're on a plane of existence, but that's another topic, another episode. But, but I've never been up there, so I don't know 100%. It's all...
Well, I mean, we've been up there in a plane.
Yeah, and it looks like it is, but it could be, what if it's a big box, like a big square? We just don't know
What if
for
it's like
sure.
a microchip? What if this existence is just one little chip in a giant motherboard and we're so plugged in that we need
In
to
the Matrix?
unplug? Yeah, man.
Well, you never know. I did see a clip on the Joe Rogan clips where this guy pointed a laser at the wall and he was on DMT and he saw code in the wall, like 3-dimensional, and then he repeated the experiment with like 100 people. Apparently, I don't know, it could be a lie or whatever, but apparently they see written code in the wall when they're on DMT, like in all of fabric of everything. So
Yeah, but then
who knows?
immediately my critical mind was just like, well, how do we truly know that this guy that
He's not putting the code in the laser?
yeah,
like
that
a
it's not
projector?
actually like a projector. Because he's the only one doing this test, and of course he's saying like, "Oh, it's a repeatable test. Like I'm doing it with like tons of different folks who blah blah blah." But you're the one.
But they only can see it when they're on DMT. People that aren't on the DMT can't see it.
Well, I
So
guess
that's kind of
so,
weird.
yeah.
It is interesting. I would like to see other people replicate this because, psychedelics are another interesting topic that we could talk about. It's quite an open door opportunity for another episode.
Yes.
But not right now.
Talking about drugs. We do want to talk about drugs. We attempted to do one early on, and then we're like, wait a minute. Let's just back it up here and like set a foundation and let people get to know us first, because we come out the gates talking about drugs. People will be like, well, we can't trust anything these two are saying. They're on drugs, which we are not, but we were at one point in our lives. So anyways, with that being said, yes, this topic is all about certainty. This is a podcast episode that is full of facts. They were once considered conspiracies, but now, thanks to the fact that thousands and thousands and thousands of people spanning decades have come to the same conclusions and have revealed so many of these truths, it's a fact. This is a fact. And I don't even think we can even say that the New World Order is a conspiracy anymore. I just think we need to take that word away from it and say the New World Order. Like, it is what it is, and it's a matter of fact. So,
And it's not like 10 years ago or 15 years ago where you would talk about this and it would be like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Now, I think a lot of people disbelieve generally that...
absolutely.
That there's something going on and these rich people, these globalists are...
Yeah.
Yeah, they are controlling the world, and people kind of, they know that.
Well, 100%. Now when you're out and about talking, you just say New World Order casually, and people just are like, yes, like as if you're saying like the liberal government or whatever. It's just like very common knowledge at this point. So,
and because these people controlling it, they come out and even say things like in the news. It's quite obvious what they're doing, especially since 2020. It's like everybody kind of sees it, but I think people aren't fully computing because it's just like, what can you do? Like, they don't believe there's anything they can do, so they just kind of like, oh yeah, well, what can we do? Just live our lives from day to day.
Yeah.
You know? But I was just remember this one time where I went to college. Yes, I just decided after 10 years, you know, I was about 30 years old. I'm like, well, maybe I should just try college. I just wanted to try something. I was already making like good money in the tech industry. And I decided to go for videography. And so it was a big joke. I only went 1 year. I was their best student. I had like 90-something%. And they're like, why aren't you coming back? I'm like, well, the second year is just working with these, I didn't say morons, but like these kids literally, they didn't want to work. They didn't want to do anything. It was just pure not fun with these kids just coming out of high school. They like, I really felt like they're really stupid or really irresponsible, one or the other, because I was half like asleep half the time. I did all my assignments and I was just like acing it, and these people are failing it.
You're brilliant. That's the thing.
They had to hold back the graduation, like, because over half the class failed, and so like it was a disaster that I just got out of. But there's this one class that I loved. It was just completely. It was like one of those extra things you had to choose, and it was on globalism. And it was like a political type thing. And I went in and I was just interested in engaging in the class, and the professor loved me and everything. I ended up getting 99% in this class.
Yeah,
and I wrote my final paper on globalism, the hidden hand of the New World Order.
Oh, yeah, Adam. I remember all of this now.
And it was like perfect. This is before ChatGTP. I did it all on my own with the little template that we were taught in class. And because it wasn't perfect, like there's some
probably grammatical errors.
Yeah, grammatical, structural things. He's
Maybe
like, I
like
can't
a
give you
run-on
100%, but this is great. And like, we had many conversations, and he, agreed that all the things were correct, and it was a great a thesis and a great presentation, a great essay that proved things, but yet in his mind, he wouldn't still agree. He's like, yes, and because I asked him, like, well, do you now believe in the New World Order? He's like, no, I still think things are happening randomly, even though everything you're saying is the truth. So I'm like, that's how brainwashed people were back then, because they couldn't see it. They're still watching the news every night, and it's and they're different scientific papers and political papers, and they believe in the way they believe. But I think that guy now probably believes in the New World Order after reading my essay and now seeing the things that have happened in the past 5 to 7 years.
Everything's a seed. Everything we say, everything we produce, all sorts of interactions. We're just sowing seeds. We're just out here gardening it up, baby.
Yep. So now that this is out in the open, like, what does it mean? Does it even matter that there's a New World Order? Does it matter?
Not at all.
Does it matter that there's a small group of people that meet on a regular basis that decide the fate of the earth, your future, and all policy that governs your daily life? Is this what you voted for?
No.
I didn't vote.
No, I don't vote. We don't vote. Around here, we don't vote.
Yeah, and like I just saw some headlines. I don't even watch the news, but they just insert it into YouTube, because I do go on YouTube a little bit, and the little headlines in there, I'm like, I could already tell it was completely pointless to vote. This was already predetermined and planned, and you just wasted your time. It's like when people say like, oh, don't forget to vote, and I'm like, why are you voting? Like, you're an idiot if you vote. Sorry if you voted, but like, really, after this, you shouldn't vote. The vote should be non-vote. If nobody turned up to the polls, and what can the government say? And it's like,
or just even if you're going to go through that motion, just like use your voice, like actually use the power that you have to say something in that moment. Because the fact is that somebody is going to look at that paper. And so like I just said, everything is a seed. You have an opportunity to plant a seed. Like if you feel passionately and strongly like you want to use your voice, don't be deceived in thinking that using your voice to vote the way that they have set it up for us to vote, using a pencil, not a pen, like, come on. If you think that is something that you should be doing, or you want to be able to exercise that right, we'll truly take it a step further and truly exercise your rights and your your voice by saying something that really matters to you at the core of your being. Don't just go through these useless motions, because at the end of the day, yes, Adam.
I remember I got some text messages from some political campaigners, and they're like, well, who are you going to vote for, or whatever? And I just basically said, no vote. The system is corrupt. It's pointless. And that's what I
got a message too, and I sent back, I just said, Jesus is king, all capitals.
That's right.
Like, I'm sorry. I don't
And like with the elections, if you can't see, like a few years ago, there was all this election fraud in the States and here, and there's like...
Well, that's what I'm saying about the pencil. So when you register to vote, like when you show up and they take your name, it's in a pen.
They could just erase it and
yes,
put
but then you vote. The most critical, quote unquote, critical point of documentation is with a pencil. Like, I mean, just even that right there is just like logical fallacy.
So much. They do whatever they need to do, and because it is still a system of voting, if for some reason somebody gets in the power that shouldn't be in power, they'll just kill them. But that doesn't happen. I heard there's no NDP. That was one little thing. I'm like, NDP was like the party that actually started out of a cooperative movement after World War II in Canada, and they had the Regina Manifesto, and it was us starting cooperatives of the farms and everything. Cooperative versus corporation, and this movement got big, but this is exactly what they don't want. And so in the future, when we're talking about the answers to all this, keep that in mind. Cooperatives.
Yes.
Because that's where the NDP started, but it got taken over, but they never liked the NDP. And now if it is truly gone, I know nothing about this other than one headline. Like, the NDP's dead, then there's only a two-party system. That's what they love.
Well, it's true, yeah.
They
They
bounce
have,
it
like,
back and forth.
basically amalgamated with the liberals.
Yeah, it's just a slow takeover. Even if it took 50 years, they've eliminated their real political enemy, the
So
third
anyways,
party.
truly, we're not here to give life advice, okay? Even though that was like a rant about why you shouldn't vote. But the reality is that what we're going to say here today is literally the best advice you're ever going to get. So we're not giving advice, but we're giving advice. And if you stick with us here at the Creative Revolution, we're going to make magic, baby. Because we know how it works. Like, this is the thing. And we've made life choices ahead of time because, like, I mean, you obviously know by now, we've been at this for decades. So we've made choices ahead of time that made the great pandemic of our time, so like 2020, 21, 22, 23, whatever, a lot better for us because we already didn't live in a city. We already had a place of refuge deep in the bush, and we already hadn't sold our souls to corporate slavery. We didn't work for corporations. We weren't working for the man. So we had this level of freedom to still do what we wanted, and we also had this level of sovereignty inside of us too. So we were not afraid to stand and hold the line in this critical time in our history. We ran a DIY community center called 777. And when they mandated all businesses close their doors, we stayed wide open because we knew that this was an agenda, that this was a nefarious scheme to destroy the lives of men and women and children. And we said, no, we're staying open, especially because at a time such as that, where folks are being isolated, they are afraid, they need community more than ever. And so we stayed open, we stayed loud, we stayed proud, we did all the things. And that is because we knew what was coming down the pipeline because of the research that we had done and the choices that we made. So, like, really and truly, if you don't live in a city, you're already better off than most people, right?
Yeah. Like, don't live in the city where everything's super intense and super controlled.
Well, and everything's going to be turning into a 15-minute city. Like, that's the reality. Like, that didn't go away. So, like, a lot of these things that we learned that came to the surface during this pandemic period where a lot of those documents were leaked, the liberal document that was outlining, like, the plan for our totalitarian future, that didn't go away. Just because it seems like life has gone back to normal doesn't mean
they're not still furthering their agenda.
Yeah, because these folks, these New World Order folks, and they're not just in America, like, this is a global situation, they're still having their meetings. They're still meeting quarterly, they're still meeting annually, they're still doing all the things to put the systems in motion. So don't get it confused. Like, the reality is with this guy who's now our prime minister, Carney, like, number one, Carney, like, please. That reminds me of a circus clown. You know what I'm saying? And what happens at the circus? Nephilim are parading around. So, like, this is all, at the end of the day, part of the Nephilim agenda, part of the agenda of the Satan and his plan, obviously, to kill us all.
And you may not know what Nephilim is, but I'm sure that you will if you continue listening to the Creative
I thought
Revolution.
we talked a little bit about it in one of our Bible studies early on.
Probably.
But anyways, we'll get into all these types of things here. Like, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is like maybe episode 11. And, like, we've got so much more to say about a billion other things. So,
and one important thing that we'll probably talk more about later, about the solution, It's better to surround yourself by like-minded people. Strong,
100%.
unified community, like-minded, is the strength. That's the way to get through tough times, because even people that have gone through shift situations during war, when cities break down and everything, say one of the most important things is being in an area where people are friendly and like-minded. If you're in a bad area, in most cities, everybody's going to be completely selfish and things. So that's
especially
that's a big
now,
tip.
especially
Strong
now with
community.
the flooding of immigration that is taking place in our cities.
Yeah.
It is. Well, it's a setup.
They're not screening it. They're probably screening for the worst people to bring in and mess
Even
up
aside
society.
from that, it doesn't matter if they're screening, not screening. The fact is that they're setting us up for a big time trouble, because those folks who are coming over here, number one, they are dangerous. It's crazy.
They're criminals. Now let's get into the meat of it here. I'm gonna give you the history of what I learned about the New World Order. When I was a kid, somebody once told me that 5 Jewish families ran the world.
Someone told you this when you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was like, another kid told me this, because we're just talking about, philosophizing big ideas at the time, and we're talking. He's like, I heard 5 Jewish families ran the world. I'm like, interesting, maybe. And then, I grew up and that always was just a seed in my mind, and I never discussed anything about it. That was just a statement someone had said. Right? And now, after going through learning about how everything's put together, and it actually isn't far from the truth that there's 5 Jewish families. This happened to be Jewish, probably the synagogue of Satan, the same people that, crucified Christ and that they said brood of vipers, probably unearthed things from the wisdom of Solomon back in the day, these religious orders. This is where I think that this has all come from. Yeah, we're going to go through it all. That's what I think. I was going to save some of the top stuff, but I think it's better just to go through everything. I first heard about, this whole New World Order thing, basically through
Alex Jones
in a few books. So if you haven't heard of Alex Jones, he's the poster boy for conspiracy theorists. He blows his lid, he rants and raves, and he's a character, he's an actor. That's what I believe now after everything. But he has one of the biggest online followings, radio show out of Austin, Texas, and it just so happens that when he's breaking things down, he's 95% right, and he's bringing forth all this crazy information about everything that adds up. And he was like a hub, so he was bringing in whistleblowers, people that wrote books. He's just like the magnet for everybody that was researching the New World Order and exposing these conspiracies. So it was a lot of people were influenced by this guy, but it got to a point where it was just too much for me to handle, because it was so much negative news, and he was acting up online, just blowing his lid. It was funny. Yeah, it was funny, but at the same time, it's way too much. And so I went on and off for a couple seasons until I'm like, okay, I got nothing more that I could learn from this guy. And it's kind of, now when you look at his websites and what he's putting out there, it's an overload of information. And this is what the point when I realized, everybody is always wondering, what side is Alex really on, I
think too, though, right now, the InfoWars institution that he's created has given a voice to a bunch of other people, thank God.
Yeah.
Because Alex has gone off the deep end, but I truly am thankful for the groundwork that he laid. I'm grateful for the work that he did, and especially now, there are a lot of great reporters who have a voice thanks to the InfoWars institution. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so basically I came to the conclusion after, this was actually just recently, because I always just put on the shelf. I'm like, whatever, don't even know. But there's one book called Behold a Pale Horse. And this was written by, I have it here somewhere.
Something Cooper, I believe.
Yeah, William Cooper, that's it. And this guy has a pretty amazing story. He was high up in the military intelligence, and he was just privy to information, and he put things together, and then started whistleblowing and exposing the New World Order. And so this guy, he wrote a book, all these things, and started getting the information out there, and they eventually surrounded this guy's house, the police and everything, and false charges and everything, and shot him. They all just classic what you think would happen when the government's after you when you're trying to expose them. So this is a thing that does happen, and it happened to this guy. So this guy, everything he says lines up. He's one of the pillars of the people that were putting out this information. And there was an interview with Alex Jones and William Cooper where, actually, it was an interview talking about a previous interview with Alex Jones and how Alex Jones just turned and attacked him and shut him down. And it was because he was saying that this is a Jewish conspiracy, basically, like that at the highest level, right? And Alex Jones, this is why my theory is like Alex Jones he's on the payroll. He's maybe exposing the New World Order, but he's deflecting it to make it seem like that the people in control are just really these mid-level people.
Well, lizard people, basically, is his play. That they're lizard people.
No, that's David Icke.
No, Alex Jones.
Yeah, and Alex Jones.
Too.
And there's an element of truth to that. As crazy as it seems, there's an element of truth of these lizard people, and they're a part of it too. And I don't even talk about that in the structure because that's up with the spiritual entities and the that are controlling things behind the scenes. That's but we're gonna get that at the end of here, the structure or the hierarchy of the New World Order.
So basically.
I talked a little bit about Alex Jones here and the criticisms. Lack of clear solutions was another thing. I noticed that he was just ranting and raving, and there's a billion things he could have done to make the public ready.
He made supplements.
Yeah, and that was one good thing too. Like his supplements and certain things.
I don't think they worked actually.
They seemed quite good. Anyways, he put forth good products and made a lot of money off them, right? So, but we believe he was controlled opposition. And he did infiltrate the Bohemian Grove, and that was kind of a landmark thing, showing these elites doing their rituals and stuff like that. But how did he get in there? Like, it seemed kind of suspicious that how did he get in there to film one of the rituals?
Yeah, actually, I watched a video of somebody kind of breaking that down a little bit further, and he himself tried to get access into Bohemian Grove, into the exact position where Alex claimed to have been at that moment in time. And it's basically an impenetrable fortress. Like it's not possible, actually.
Well, but did they change things after Alex infiltrated? That's also a question.
I'm not sure.
You can't do it now because
again, this is probably something that you could
research more if you wanted to.
Look into later, yeah, because now that unfortunately, Alex had his time of glory where he was like, yes, this hub where everybody was going to, everyone's like, oh, Alex Jones, you know what I mean? He was like a household name to now he's kind of like, people don't want to talk about Alex Jones. He's not such a good name anymore. So it was kind of like when all of that was starting to happen and people were starting to really question, like, hey, what side is this guy really on, that this video came forth, kind of trying to really figure out if it's true that he broke in, or does it more seem like he had access to give a glimpse? You know what I mean?
That's what they like to do. They like to leave things in plain sight, breadcrumbs of a trail, because one of their philosophies is, or one of their directives actually, to some sort of higher up spiritual contract with God or whatever, is that they need to tell humanity what they're doing, what they plan to do to them, and what so they're kind of leaving this trail,
like they're doing
evidence.
Now. You'll own nothing and be happy.
Yeah, well, now they're not even leaving breadcrumbs. Now they're just throwing, stakes in your face.
And part of it too is they always need to be the ones in control of the narrative, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
That's about controlling this narrative. People are gonna whistleblow, so they want the biggest whistleblowers, them to control the information.
Exactly, it's a psyop.
Yeah.
It's just a psyop.
So I've seen the evolution of all this information, and to me, the picture is crystal clear now. And anybody that does any research, this is so well documented. There's so many people in the truth community that knows more than ever before about these basic facts. And you could see, lots of documentaries, mind maps. There's a lot of information out there. And now, when you're awake and you see it in real time, through the news and world events. You're like, wow, this is the New World Order. Everything is now the New World Order. Even when I'm seeing movies being released and the titles of the different things on billboards, I'm like, this is all part of them in their programming. And a few other sources I'm going to mention that was influential in me. There's some notable documentaries. Like in the 70s, there was a lot of people uncovering stuff because there was an awakening in the 70s. There's even a spiritual awakening. And there's like an awakening of the truth. And there was one pretty cool old documentary done in an old style from 1969 by Edward Griffin called The Capitalist Conspiracy. And that basically just goes over their whole strategy of like the banking system and controlling everything and all that. And it's a great little documentary. It's not even that long. I recommend people watch that if you want an overview of kind of what they're doing. And like now all the information is kind of there was maybe unclear details in the 70s. Like William Guy Carr pawns in the game. He wrote a few books. He was high up. He was a general, an admiral in the Canadian military, and he found out about all this stuff, and he went around exposing it. But he came from the angle that it was a communist conspiracy, right? He knew there was a conspiracy. He knew all these elements, but he just assumed it was a communist conspiracy because that was all part of the game, and they were using communism. But now, things aren't like that anymore, and you can clearly see there was much higher things that he didn't know about of the bigger picture. So like now we've had this evolution from the 70s, the 90s, the 2000s, and now it's crystal clear. Like all these things are coming together. Okay.
All right. Okay. So we talked about Alex Jones. We talked about some of these good documentaries that you watched. We've kind of touched on the fact that there's whistleblowers, but let's dive into a little bit more about these whistleblowers. So folks, that is like another common name is Snowden, Julian Assange with the WikiLeaks and those Clinton emails. So let's hit on that, babe.
Yeah. This the fact that this is irrefutable evidence against them. This is another like big thing that you cannot deny, that there's so many whistleblowers throughout history attached to exposing the New World Order and their plans.
And even think about people like Michael Jackson, people like Prince, those folks who are, again, also whistleblowers, because like the Hollywood agenda is equally as tied into all of this, because what comes out of Hollywood is like the main driver of like societal influence. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that keeps people heading in a specific direction. And so folks like them are also notable whistleblowers. Maybe they're not talking like about, the banking cartel and all of this, but they're talking about what's going on over there. And somebody too, even, who's kind of going through it right now is Justin Bieber. Just wanted to shout out Justin Bieber. If you're listening, I know you're not, but if you are, we're praying for you, bro. You can do this. God is with you. You've been born for such a time as this to make it through this and to finally crush the head of the serpent. All right, so keep going.
Is this the evidence of these whistleblowers and what they bring forth? Like now, it's not just people whistleblowing and it's an article in the media. They're writing movies about these things. So I think there's maybe a Julian Assange movie, but I know there's a Snowden movie. And, when it comes to the conclusion that you see that the surveillance state is gone buck wild, and they're just using every device to gather all the information, no matter who you are or where you are. So people don't think that like this truth comes forward, and yet we still use all the things that are given to us. We just get smart TVs, smartphones, and have no protection. We're just like feeding the beast. We recently upgraded our phones to the Google Pixel 8. And as bad as that sounds, it's the most secure phone in the planet if you erase the operating system and put on graphene. So this is what we did, and nobody can get into it. The police can't get into it. Nobody can get into it unless maybe you have a quantum computer. Maybe you can get into it, but they're not going to use that on you. Unless you're like Julian Assange or Snowden, then they might. But
the basic people, they're not going to be using that on, but it definitely creates like this, again, like it feels very powerful. It feels like I'm taking my power back in regards to having like this security and this privacy. Not that I'm like afraid of being tracked or hacked, but knowing that I can't be just makes me feel more sovereign, more free, and more autonomous on this planet. You know what I'm saying? And
it's these small changes that could make a big impact in the world that we're talking about here. Like if we keep going down the path that they've, prepared for us to the slaughterhouse, putting the sheep down the path with the gates and everything, sometimes all you need to do is jump the fence a little bit, and then, it messes up their plan.
Exactly. And think about the more folks that do it, right? Because truly, I kind of feel like right now we're not on a path anymore. We're on a bit of a slippery slope. Things are accelerating, especially with AI being pretty much integrated into absolutely everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even just Microsoft Word suddenly has this thing now called the Copilot. Pretty much everything that you have, even Adobe Photoshop, all of these things just have AI just built into it now. Yeah. And that it's not good. It's not, it's true. I know that it's hard to even just it's not good. Well, how is it not good? It's helpful. It's making me more efficient, this and that. Okay, for sure. If you're using it minimally as a tool, but at the same time, like Adam's saying, all of these things are just collecting data.
And that's the big thing. You're feeding the beast. We like to use ChatGPT, but I've researched other AI models because I want to get off of that, because who owns the ChatGPT infrastructure? Microsoft. And if you look into their company, they're very shady about all their data and everything. They're not transparent at all. So they're taking all of your thoughts and ideas and they're feeding their mother AI. And that's scary, because they're going to use that AI to trace down the dissidents and any combatants of the system and kill you through the 5G frequencies. That's probably what they're doing and what they're planning, because some of the people that helped start OpenAI, they've defected and they've started something else because they said these guys are crazy. What they're doing, it's not honest and it's crazy. So this is why we need to comprehend everything we're talking about in this system error series and make some decisions, because we can't just keep going down the path that they've prescribed for us.
No, and especially if you're a believer. That's the thing. Especially if you believe that Christ is king, if you are a new creation in Christ, if you're living on earth but in the kingdom, you need to make changes, and you need to make them now.
Yeah, because they get you and keeping you busy, and then they give you the most convenient option that will help, right? And even though it's just a little bit more effort sometimes, it was effort to get this new phone and install this, and even learning it, it's not, we used to have iPhones, and it's a lot easier to use an iPhone, right? But we need to make those sacrifices and adjust our lives, and it's just a little bit with a large reward.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into
whistleblowers.
We just talked about whistleblowers.
Oh, we're done with them. Okay.
Now we're talking about the, it's not a lot to talk about unless we wanted to deep dive, but we don't need to, you just need to know that there are whistleblowers and that they're
out there.
They're out there, and they're a major component of why we know what's going on. And they're truthful stories that these people have told. They haven't been refuted. Snowden's not been exposed as a liar or anything. No, it's the truth. And it's funny enough that our governments are so corrupt. I work for the government running as a contractor, is running the soundboards and stuff. And I was in tons of meetings of high level, not security access, but I knew enough about what was going on that they would bring everybody together, and there's a big CSIS meeting with all the minions, and they're one of their main presentations is we don't need another Snowden, right? And they're and they had a whole presentation on security and everything, and I'm well, basically what you're saying is that we're surveilling everybody and we're doing things we shouldn't, and we don't need any whistleblowers like Snowden exposing our corruption.
Well,
that's what they're telling their minions, and they don't even realize. They're oh yeah, great.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. So now with the structure, I'm just going to go over the basics just from memory of how I see the structure of this New World Order. Because it could get very complex. There's so many organizations, interconnected orders and this and that. There's many mind maps online interconnecting all the organizations. Some of them are very good, but it's confusing because it's so big, and this conspiracy is integrated into everything today. But basically, it goes a little bit like this. At the very top, you get guys in black robes doing satanic things, communing and getting instructions from the dark side entities. These are the high priests of the order, and they're at the top. And this satanic occultic stuff runs from the top to the bottom. So even the young minions in your local coven are still doing the rituals. Everybody from the entertainment industry up to the banking, like everybody just does the rituals, but they're not all on the same level. But at the top,
your Freemasons and your Shriners and your
Yeah.
Knights of Templar in your local community. On Sundays, they're handing out hot dogs, but on Friday nights, it gets fiery in the lower levels.
yeah, but at the very top, they have probably like the most serious rituals, and I'm not going to get into the dark things that they do, but they get information and they get instructions from these entities. So now below that, and even some of those people are the priests of the order, but they're part of bloodlines. And I talked about the 5 Jewish families, the synagogue of Satan, I call them, and they're at the top. It's these bloodlines, and not going to go into who they are and that. There's people that have exposed some of it, but it's still not quite clear what's exactly at the top. Like these 5 Jewish families and the bloodlines and everything, they form a bunch of councils at the top. There's like the Council of 300 and things like that, these different orders. But basically, you got these bloodline families at the top. And below that, which also is part of some of the bloodline families, are royal families. And there's, I guess, hierarchies of the bloodlines, because you have the Queen of England, and, well, I guess she's dead, and now it's the king. But you have the British monarchy, which is, they control a lot, but they're actually were taken over by the Rothschilds and the banking family. Like, this was the whole thing with Napoleon, and basically the banking family had spies and this intelligence networks, which I'll talk about in a second. But they found out before that Napoleon lost, but they came back and reported to all the newspapers that Napoleon won, and the stocks crashed. They bought everything up in Britain, and when the real news came back, they were the new owners of Britain. So they actually took over the monarchy through banking. That's what they did, and the stock market system. So this is
evil.
Mm-hmm. So these higher level bloodline people have taken over the monarchy, right? But there's other bloodlines and royal bloodlines. There's a whole bunch through Europe, Russia, and even the Arabs. Saudi Arabia and like Dubai. Like these are, they're just under these top level people, but they all come to the table and decide, like, they have to play the game. It's like these world leaders and bloodlines and powerful people come together at the top, and they just decide how to carve up the world, but they got to play the game of the dark people in the robes. If they don't take the instructions from that for Satan's plan for the whole world, then they end up like getting bombed and their country disappearing off the map. Which is what happened to Libya, which is what happened to Iraq, and soon to be Iran, because Iran is the only country, I believe, that isn't under their authority. They have their own system and everything, but because they have nukes, they have they have a lot of stuff that will make them difficult to take out. But they're on the chopping block as they prepare everybody for like the one final war. There's a whole philosophy of the 3 world wars. When you look at all this up, Albert Pike, I believe, 3 world wars, they wrote about it, that they are going to bring about 3 world wars, and everything has happened exactly as they said up till now. So, what's happening in the world politically? Well, we're probably coming up for the 3rd world war. But anyways, we're not talking about their plan yet. That's the next episode.
Because we also have like religious hierarchy, right? Like the Roman Catholic Church, and then the Black Pope.
Yeah, and the Pope that just died, he probably didn't have any authority. It's the Black Pope that, just tells the real Pope what to do.
And this Pope apparently, though, is the last Pope.
Yeah.
No more popes.
But the Roman Catholic Church is also like very high up there, because a lot of their ceremonies are very satanic at the top, and it talks about, people have talked about tunnels under the Vatican and like going through these rituals and all this stuff. So they're at the top. And then there's other religions like Islam, Christianity, many factions under the wrong spirit, other than the Holy Spirit. These are other religions that are in the deception. And there's also like all these different factions like Scientology, the Baha'i, Kabbalah. These are all tied together, but they're different, but all of the same thing. And then tied in there, we have the banking families. So, and they're pretty much at the top, but not all of them. We don't know exactly how it all fits together, but everybody's heard of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. They're the most popular. So these guys are like major players. We know about them, and like as I said, the people that are at the very top, you don't even know who they are. You don't even know
these
they
are like
exist,
the front men.
Yeah, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are like the front men families for the elite bloodlines. And they
we'll take the hit. We'll do it. We'll
and that's
do the
why
dirty work.
you could tell that since they own the monarchy in Britain, the royal bloodlines are probably just below them. So this everything below this level is now extremely obvious because we see it in the news and we see it in the day-to-day actions of the people on these lower levels. So the banking families, they bring everybody together, and they run all the world, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. They all formed these world organizations that we know, the NGOs and like the United Nations, the WHO, the Bilderberg, etc. There's a whole list of them, and it's like bringing together the world and world peace. But when you examine the actions of these organizations, they're like completely opposite of what they stand for. The UN says like, oh, world peace, we're going to protect the world peace, but that they love to like hold back and they use their intelligence agencies to get a country to go to civil war and commit genocide, and they could have prevented it, but then they like to come in like the heroes after and then set up a tribunal. That's what you hear, and where nothing really happens, and they let the people off that did all the dirty work, and they fry a couple lower level guys. That's what happens. That's what the UN does. That's why so many people that interact with these organizations, like there's some indigenous chiefs that I met, and they went to the UN, they get all this great stuff said and that they're going to do, and then there's no action. There's never any action because they're following their bigger plan, and they're just appeasing, the people.
Yeah.
Making it seem like they're doing something
All talk,
great.
no real action.
Yeah. And so the people who run these organizations, the elites, the intelligence agencies are the arms of the elite. And they're all one and the same. All the intelligence agencies, they all communicate, and they're all part of the same network, and they do all the dirty work of the New World Order. So you got the CIA, the Mossad, CSIS, and MI6. And these agencies, they control everything from behind the scenes. And you got things like they'll do assassinations when people get out of line, and there's a lot of documentation about this.
And not only that, there's
CIA,
like tons of movies, right?
Tons of movies.
The Bourne Identity.
They're protecting the elites, doing their satanic stuff. Then like people that investigated, like there's FBI agents and all these people that have investigated the satanic stuff. And they end up dying, like almost all of them. And like there's so many stories of them even, researching missing children, researching the rituals, and they all end up dead. Like you can't touch them because they're all like part of the elite in the government and the governors and all these things, right? So they run all the child trafficking, the drug trafficking, all these things like this, the arms. And anytime you hear about like rings getting busted and everything, they're just because there's still other evil people. Like you think about cartels and stuff that aren't in mafia, and they're just not under them, but they're resisting the system and they're doing their own evil stuff, right? So they don't want any competition, so they typically have slowly taken out those mafia family type things, cartel type family, other people doing bad stuff. And you'll just see, or people that don't comply under their structure. So when you hear of like big drug busts, child trafficking busts, all these things, like they're just frying lower level people to say, look, we're doing something about the problem. But meanwhile, like child slavery, human trafficking is bigger than it's ever been. Like you think we eliminated slavery? Absolutely not. It's just, it's gone underground. And like the elite are making this industry one of the biggest in the world. Like it's sickening. And that's why like these dark things, like you don't want to deep dive. Like trust me, it'll affect your spirit, it'll affect your mood.
Yeah, it'll affect your mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think you're having a bad day, well, do a little deep dive into this and your day is over.
Yeah,
it's ruined, catastrophic. Take a bath, go to bed, pet the cat.
And so most people think that like, oh, the governments of the world, they're like these democratically elected or like they're dictators, and they decide what's going on in the world. It's just like these different nation states like vying for power and with treaties and allies and all these things. That's what they think. But really, this is all lower level stuff. These guys are all getting their orders from these greater organizations that the elite have put together. So like if there's a prime minister to be elected, he normally turns up at the Bilderberg before. Like Harper, he was at the Bilderberg before he got elected. And so we find this pattern of people that are going to be put into these big positions always go to the Bilderberg. They get their instructions, they, whatever, do their ceremonies, ritual, whatever. And apparently that, Harper is still controlling, like, Trudeau. And probably not Carney. He seems like he's one of the higher ups. But, yeah, everybody hates Trudeau. Like, yes, but I feel sorry for the guy because he was just a dumb actor. And he had to do what they say. And who knows what abuse this guy suffered. It was just, you could tell that he wasn't a true leader and he was just an actor. So these guys, they go to the Bilderberg and they get their instructions and then they control everything. So everything on the governments are very low on there. They're just fulfilling the policy of the New World Order, and that's all they do. Now, there are because the governments are set up like a democracy, there's not everybody in there are players. It's only like the very top people. I could tell you stories about the Canadian government and like these sick people, like the top ministers and everything, just doing really bad stuff, and then like on a Tuesday night, and then going voting and doing their political stuff the very next day. Like there's these bad seeds, these evil people all throughout there, but not everybody is in there. And that's why you get some nations that they use this shadow democracy and they actually do good things. There's a few European countries, they ban this, they ban that. And I don't even know, like, I know Trump's an actor. We believe Trump's an actor, but a lot of people hate Trump, but he's doing the right things, like banning CBDCs and these things that would be against the New World Order's plan. So I'm not even really sure what to think of what the angle is, other than maybe they're like, trying to create a civil war in America, which we know they're trying to do, or trying to build up America and pull it of China so there could be a third world war. Like, I don't know the real angle. All I know is like some of these things, the policies that is actually better for the country. These tariffs, like, think about it. Your enemy makes everything that you own. Like, if China is going to be the enemy, so how can you have all manufacturing being there? So like bringing manufacturing through these tariffs, like, yeah, it may suck, but like having stuff made in America, or imagine even Canada making their own stuff, it's going to bring the power back to your country. And, that overall is a good thing for a country, not to be dependent on slave labor from another country where your enemy is like making all the chips, the computer chips to go in all your devices. Like, you got to think about these things. But anyways, this bigger political spectrum is on the lower scale. You have the media, the schools, the government policy, the food, even the poisons and the FDA, everything in this reality, these men decide at these meetings. So everything that happens in the world, whatever it is, the education curriculums, what's the next movies that are coming out, the books that are published, like everything is these people are controlling. Like that's
control freaks.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the richest men are way down on the scale. You think Bill Gates, Bezos, and Elon Musk, like, these are small players in the thing. They're just part of, the game. And so, like, they could be taken out at any time. Like Steve Jobs, like, he didn't, fully comply, and, he's gone now, and you could tell he left and then he came back and all these things. So these people are small players.
What do you mean he left and he came back?
Yeah, he left Apple at some point. He wasn't happy with something. I don't know the full story, but I remember there being something, and then he came back and then he died or something. So there's definitely suspicion there that he wasn't wanting to play the full game for whatever reason.
Well, probably he must have had a moral conviction inside of him.
But they're all the people that you see with the money and the big corporations. They're all part of the same plan. You got the corporations controlling the governments, and every big corporation is actually just owned by two. Do you know which two?
I do. It's BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yeah, I mean, you heard this. People traced the money to all in like the shareholders and everything, and did this investigation, and they found that two companies control almost every other corporation in the world: Vanguard and BlackRock, which they hold shares in each other, and the same men are part of the board of directors on each company.
Yeah, it's technically just one. It's the same. Oh my gosh, it is exactly the same as quote unquote democracy. It is two wings of the exact same
Exactly.
bird heading in one direction. And so it is an illusion of choice in some way, shape, or form, because you're out there at the grocery store and you're looking at all these products on all the shelves. You're like, wow, what do I choose? Well, the reality is that they're all owned by the same evil corporations, and they're all filled with poison, and they will give you cancer and kill you early.
Yeah.
That's why you can't shop at a grocery store.
Yeah.
If you're interested, I'm starting a food co-op. Stay tuned. We're going to have a really fun episode where we talk about all sorts of solution-based things that we are actually actioning in real life, because real life is right now.
Absolutely. Taking action. This is what it's about.
First we get new phones, then we got new food, baby.
Absolutely.
And I'm hungry today.
So don't pay attention to any of these nation-state actors. You know, everybody in the government, in the media, news anchors, anybody. They're just actors. There's acting. You know, the CIA pays a very large number, probably the greater portion of its employees work in the media.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's totally crazy.
They're making TV shows, and I had the PSYOP manual. I've read it. People have done it. It has full instructions how to change the public's mind, how to control the public through the media and through television series. So you think that there's no agenda behind all these things, but there absolutely is, and there's proof. There's tons of proof. They're just state actors. That's all they are. And the lowest level and the biggest problem that we encounter is the lowest on the totem pole is the enforcers. So you got the police, which are policy enforcers. You got organizations like the RCMP, which is one of the corruptest police organizations in the world. You don't really know it. They seem all nice doing their
riding their horses,
parading and everything, but I could tell you so many stories. And then you got the local government and their inspectors and
municipality type stuff.
Yeah, municipality stuff, and these are the people that put the pressure on from above. So this is where it all comes down to, and this is when we talk about the solution. This is where we can really win, because we actually know the law, we know sovereignty, we know that we're actually in control of the local. Everything local is under sovereign jurisdiction, under common law. And their whole system is basically based on lies. And if you got to go back, we did do an episode on sovereignty. If you want to know more about that, which we will talk more about, and we will continue to talk and educate people about sovereignty and the truth behind it. But go back to that episode and listen to that, because that's a key. That's a key for fighting and resisting this whole new world order. So, and the second lowest on the totem pole is the good servants, the privileged people that provide value to the new world order. So these are, the elites, and there's a couple levels of them that I noticed too. There's the privileged elites that just really they're psychotic. They get, and there's no clearer evidence to this than when I'm doing government events. There's the people that are kind of like from the Hunger Games, from the Capitol. They come and they have unlimited alcohol, they have spreads of all the best food, the biggest presentation, and they come and they have these are political government paid for meetings and parties and all these things I've seen, and these people is feasting and being gluttonous and that. And then you have the people that from 1984, or
you mean the people from the districts?
Yeah, or the people, that's they're above the districts. It's the people from what's the book? 1984 and George Orwell.
George Orwell wrote 1984.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. And they're like the worker people that are working for the system. They're like the public servants. So these types of people are doing the minions. Like all the people in the previous that are feasting, they're all like the ministers and all these people that are just making the decisions, and then all the workers that fulfill their orders. Like when I set up a show for them, they just get water now. I was at the point where they cut the coffee out of being free and provided for by the establishment where they have their meetings. They only get water service now because they're supposed to be public servants and they can't be taking away from the public's money. But
no, they can't be taking away from these buffets and all you can drink things that these other guys are going to.
Yeah, so that, and like, if you're one of those government workers, like, you're being severely oppressed. And I just remember a time where I'm pretty sure that this was like a test to see the loyalty of them, but the government implemented, I think it was, what was it called? Phoenix or something, this new payment system.
Yeah, it was called Phoenix.
Yeah, and which is an occultic symbol. But basically, some people didn't get paid for over a year.
Not just some people.
A lot.
Lots of government workers here in Canada did not get paid for a very long time because they couldn't get this system to work, which is literally insane. Because, like, a payment system, like, it doesn't matter. How was it working before you had Phoenix? Well, the people are still
and
clocking
I think it's
in.
okay to
Not pay your people? Anyways, it's totally unhinged. And that's
Yeah.
why I think, I mean, working for the government is disgraceful.
Yeah, unless you're in there to do some good,
Or unless you're in there to, like, unplug stuff and be a little bit unhinged in the workplace and sow seeds and then, like, do risky things by graffiti in the bathroom or whatever, you might as well quit.
Yeah, because they're not going to. They're eventually will force you to comply to everything. That's about getting vaccinated, getting chipped, getting all these things.
But you're also just like, you're helping it run. It's like that
Yeah.
one movie where there is.
Do you not feel convicted?
What's it called? Technocracy? Or what was it called? Where the robot lady ends up becoming the one who, like, rules the world. But there's, like, an image of all these basic, like, low-level workers, like, in a basement, and they're the ones that make all the cogs continue to go. You know what I mean? And so, like, that is kind of disturbing, but also empowering to think that, like, if you are, revolutionary in any way, shape, or form, and you find yourself, clocking in at a government job, well, you have access to a cog in the wheel. So, like we said at the very beginning of this series, this is for the disruptors. Now, I'm not saying that you show up and set the building on fire, but I am saying that you look for small ways to disrupt, to be a glitch in the matrix. You know what I mean? Because even something like a little internal uprising or a little coup d'etat can have profound ripple effect on the overall low-level totem pole structure that we have going on here. And the reality is that we all know that we can never get to the top of this pyramid, nor are we trying to. We know that we can all only affect our own locality, right? That's what we know. And so affecting our local area is extremely important, and there is value in that. So at the end of the day, if there's anything that you take away from this entire series, is that we need to take our power back, and we need to rise up in love and live our best lives now in the face of darkness. We need to shine bright as light beams of love and hope.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's amazing. And I just had a little short story I'm going to tell about the machine and how it actually benefited some people.
What machine? The
government and, the system. These people, they applied to get a job, and they got the job, and, some of the leadership shifted around, and they turn up to work, and they have nobody above them. And so they basically had no one to report to, but because the system said there needed to be somebody in this position, they would clock in. I think one person, it was almost a decade. They would come and just clock in and then leave for the whole day. And they did this for 10 years. And they got raises, they got promotions.
Oh my goodness.
And they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And there's more than one that this happened to.
Yeah,
So-
because the system is large,
Yeah.
And so who knows, like, if that was somebody, then who knows if that type of glitch in the matrix took place because of what some predecessor had the idea. You know what? I see the way that this system is so friggin' layered, and I see my little way. I see a little wedge. I see a way in which I can get in here and cause something to happen. Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
And it's crazy, like, how, like, they provide us services that are absolutely junk, like the healthcare, transportation, or whatever. And they take so much money. I don't like, people need to realize that the government, and even this focus on the Canadian government, is just, it's absolutely insane that we're not, like, rising up and getting rid of these people, because there's absolutely no need for the federal government. They literally take our money, and any of these services that they provide, like, most of them aren't even necessary. You may be getting, like, say, a welfare check or baby bonus or these things. Like, you could still have all that. You don't need the government to do those things. You could get rid of the entire federal government and just put all the power in the local government, and then like a provincial like board of directors that makes sure that the money flows to where it's needed. You don't need the federal government at all. They literally take 90% of the money and spend it on their own projects and plans, and then use the leftovers to run the society. Like, that's literally how bad it is.
It's true. Like, look at the roads everywhere in Canada. And sometimes you're driving and then you end up on a good road and you're just like in utter shock. You're like, oh my gosh, like this road is amazing. And you think that the rest of your road trip is going to be amazing. And then all of a sudden it turns to a dirt road and you're like, what is happening? Why is this road not paved? How did it go from being pristinely paved to not paved to now I'm in a spot that has potholes that are actually going to eat my vehicle?
Like, and we live in a tourist town, like one of the jewels of the area, definitely of the municipality. It's amazing and beautiful. And the roads right into town are just like absolutely insane.
They're slaughtered.
Just like,
It's like ground beef.
Can't pave the roads, then what are you good for, you know?
It's true. That's what I always say. That's literally what I
Can't
always say.
pave the roads, and like right beside our house, there's a huge sinkhole, and they just have like old fallen down construction fence. It's getting bigger, and there's a number of these that they just aren't fixing, and it's not even on the block to get it fixed. It's just gonna there. A whole car could probably fall down into there.
Yeah, I mean those sinkhole videos on YouTube are like very interesting to watch.
Yeah,
like when they open up and
you're
just driving along, and the next thing you know, you're in a sinkhole. Like, it's pretty wild to watch. I'd like it.
And now, to end it off at the very bottom, which I believe we're at the very top if we remove ourselves from the system and stop complying. It's the chattel, the useless eaters, they call us. The people at the bottom, we're only good to, this is the people in the districts, Hunger Games. We're just there to fulfill one basic need, as to, work as laborers. And this is one of the reasons why they want to get rid of a lot of us, because there's too many of us to control, and they don't need us anymore because they have robotics and AI to literally fulfill people working in the factories, even serving the food, all these things. We're the chattel, the useless eaters, and
No, not us. We are not.
No, we are not. But that's what they call the people at the bottom. But that's why it's important to remove ourselves from that.
Yeah.
And give our energy, our time and energy, and our treasure to each other in local community.
Yep.
And that's basically the answer. Creating these parallel structures that provide for our needs. So this brings us to the end of the exposing the New World Order and who they are and how they operate. And the next episode, we're going to go over a bit about the plan, so you have an overview of everything we've discovered about what these people are planning and what they have done. So
I think we need to talk about what they have done?
A little bit, yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about 2020, and it all ties in together, because then after that, we're going to move away from this exposing all this dark stuff and talk about solutions.
Yay, solution.
So tune in for the solution.
Well, not next week, but the week after.
Yeah, the week after that.
We might also do a little flowcast in between, just for some spiciness.
How about a jam? I don't even think we have done a jam yet, but it would be great, because our jams are pretty awesome sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes they are.
Thank you, and see you.